This is News 12 Law Call.
Hi there, and welcome to News 12 Law Call Zoom edition. I'm your host, Neil Gordon. Very pleased to be part of a two-part episode with attorney Tanya Jeffords and also Vic Hawk from the Hawk Law Group. How are both of you today?
Doing great, Neil. Doing great.
Wonderful.
Doing really good.
And we've enjoyed topics with Tanya on drug court, and tonight we're going to be talking about mental health court and veterans court. And Vic, you've known Tanya for decades now, I guess.
Yeah,
I will admit to that.
You know, it's rare that you meet a lawyer who cares as much about her clients as Tanya does. Tanya is a great advocate for her clients. She recently obtained I think $4.5 million judgment in a employment discrimination case. She's a very hard worker, does everything she can for you. But what you don't know about Tanya is her work where the pay doesn't exist. And she helped found the drug court. And she is also very familiar with the veterans court and the mental health court. And I want to tell our viewers it's very important that you support these courts. They save the taxpayers a lot of money. They save a lot of lives through what they do. And more importantly, they give an opportunity for an individual who, for whatever reason in the past, has their life falling apart. And we used to just put them in jail. In the drug arena, individuals that get addicted to drugs, that keep coming back, relapse and that kind of thing, never get care, and they'd end up in jail for most of their life. Mental health individuals who are charged with offenses end up in jail for a substantial portion of their life. Veterans whose lives have fell apart. And these courts are essential to save the taxpayers a lot of money and essential to saving families and individuals. So we are spending not only this Law Call edition, but the one last week, time to help the public to understand how important these courts are, because you're going to read about them in the newspaper about whether or not these should be supported, whether they should be eliminated, whether they should be better funded, and what better way than for a taxpayer to spend their money than to help an individual and a family to get back on their feet. And Tanya Jeffords will be able to help us today to understand how the Veterans Court works in relation to the drug court and how the mental health court works in relation to the drug court.
That's right. And Tanya, let's just get started and jump in with a question from Luke, who wanted to know, how does the Veterans Court work and who may benefit from this program?
Well, I can tell you the Veterans Court and the Mental Health Court are set up a little bit similarly because they are post-adjudication, meaning that you're charged with a felony. Your lawyer is sitting down with you and says, well, have you ever served in the military? And veterans have a different set of issues than I think just mental health court or just drug court. And that is because a lot of their substance abuse and or crime is related to their service. Now, they don't get a null pros in this program, which we hope to eventually change because it should be similar. They do the same thing, except for they plea into Veterans Court. They get their treatment at the VA. So the Judge Blanchard, who is over that court as well, he will come, they will meet with them each week in court, and they will talk to them about their progress, make sure they're taking their medication because a lot of them are struggling with PTSD. They're struggling with nightmares. And the interesting thing with the Veterans Court is that we will have people in drug court who you'll find out are veterans, and we will transfer them to the Veterans Court, because the treatment when they're sitting in group is different. They're talking about veterans issues. It's very difficult to have served 3 tours in Iraq, and have done some things there that you can't sleep at night because of. So you need to be around people in your peer group who can understand that commitment to your country, coming back and having that commitment to your family. And their charges may be a little bit more violent. That was one thing that when we did the training with Veterans Court up in Buffalo many years ago, that they noticed. And so it's a separate court post-plea, but they kind of do the same thing. They're going to go to treatment at the VA. They are going to address those underlying issues that's causing them to get in trouble with the law, because most veterans do not get in trouble with the law. And I can give you some examples of clients that I really felt like if several years ago we would have had a veterans court, they would not have ended up in prison because their families didn't know what to do and they didn't know what to do. And if there's time when we come back, I can tell you about 2 cases. That would be really good. One is I represented many years ago as a public defender. If you guys remember the guy who drove his car into the mall to pick up his girlfriend, who was no longer his girlfriend. I don't know if anybody was here during that time frame. Well, I had the pleasure of representing him, and the family was like, look, this has been going on for a long time. We don't know what to do with him. We don't spend enough money on mental health care in our country. And so there was nowhere to put him. And they were like, well, can you just put him in jail for 10 days? This is literal for 10 years. This is what the family, I said, okay, but there was no program then. And I think back to that young man, I'm thinking, wow, he could have gone into this mental health court. He could have been accountable to the judge each week, somebody just talking to him, making sure that he was on his meds, and it would have supported the family. I had another client who, it was a very serious case, and he had shot somebody, but he was basically having PTSD problems, and he ended up in prison. And I think if he would have had the opportunity to do the mental health court or the veterans court, it would have worked out. And so those 2 are a combination where you have got to be on something and you need some help monitoring to make sure that you stay on your meds to do it.
And Tanya, CJ want to know about qualifications for this. He's got some charges against him and wanted to know, how would he qualify for the Veterans Court program? In other words, is there some sort of a referral status with this?
Well, what you would need to do is your lawyer would need to identify that you have the issue. They would need to have a diagnosis by someone that they have treated with before. They can refer their name to Rhoda Wheeler, the drug court coordinator, and get onto a screening track. And in the screening process, they're going to ask for their medical records. Have you ever been diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar? Are you a veteran? Do you have any of this? Now, combining mental health court and Veterans Court because they work the same. And then when you go to sentencing on that case, you don't get a null pros like you do in drug court, but that is a part of your sentencing conditions, but they have more of a tendency to stay out of trouble that way. And I'm hoping that in the future that they will also be able to get a null pros for their charges. So your lawyer needs to advocate for it in the courtroom before the judge, send in a referral to the drug court coordinator, Rhoda Wheeler. You can do that through the email. And you need to make sure that you have their medical history to go to treatment so that they can interview them to make sure that they're fit for mental health court or for Veterans Court. And actually, sometimes we'll have people who are getting screened for drug court, and the treatment provider, they have a tool that they use to assess your mental health. And so sometimes they'll say, well, this is not, drug court's not for them. They should be in mental health court. Or we'll have somebody who's a veteran in drug court, and they'll say, well, this is not working for me. Can you transfer me to Veterans Court where the treatment will be different? And it's all run and overseen by Judge Blanchard, who has a huge commitment to our community and to the veterans, the mentally ill, and those addicted to drugs.
Clearly, there are a number of options if you get in situations like that, and there are perhaps some exclusions, and we'll look into that a little further after we take our first break. Our topic, Veterans Court and Mental Health Court here on LawCall. We'll see you in just a few minutes.
Welcome back to News 12 Law Call with award-winning broadcaster Neil Gordon. And from the Hawk Law Group, attorney Vic Hawk, with more than 30 years experience and millions of dollars awarded to his clients. Attorney Reed Sanders, born and raised in Thompson and known for his strong courtroom skills. With criminal law, former police officer, now lawyer Sean Merzlach. And with South Carolina injury law, trial attorney Chase Hawk. Plus guest attorneys from across the CSRA. Your rights, your calls, live. News 12 Law Call.
Welcome back to News 12 Law Call. I guess we've been doing this program more than 8 years, and you learn something new every week. Did not know that a veterans or mental health court even existed in the CSRA, and we're so pleased to welcome back into the program the founder of the Hawk Law Group, Vic Hawk, who has invited Tanya Jeffords, an attorney in the CSRA as well, to chime in. And Vic, let's begin this segment with you. Of course, you're very heavily involved now in the management of the firm and personal injury law, but years back, you were very involved in criminal defense and felonies and so forth.
Right.
Did you ever wish that these type programs were available to you back then?
Mm. The answer to that is absolutely yes. Over the years, I've represented thousands or tens of thousands of individuals, and especially those groups that we're talking about today and last week. Those involved with drug offenses, mental health issues, those involved with mental health issues, those involved with veterans issues. And it was exceedingly sad to me that we didn't have an alternative. Most of these veterans that are homeless are entitled to care, but due to their mental decomposition, they basically don't know how to take care of themselves. They are completely irresponsible. They react inappropriately, but it's due to circumstances that were really beyond their control, and they need help, not incarceration. I especially hated to see it. I remember this guy that used to go to the library every single day, and he went to the library just to be by himself, and he would write sentences, and he would write 3 sentences in each line space. And he did that all day long. And I was asked to represent him because he was charged with criminal trespass. What was his criminal trespass? There was an abandoned house, and he went in there and went to sleep. So I found him to be a person with no help, no family, no system to help him to get on his feet at all, and under a very difficult circumstance. I was finally able to get an agency to help him, and the judge was willing to give him a chance, even though he had, 10, 11, 12 prior misdemeanors. And he did pretty well. He didn't go back to jail for an awful long time, and I would see him at different times, and he'd be headed to the library. So yeah, there's a real need for this, and I saw it all the time, and I'm overjoyed that we have this, and I'm overjoyed that Tanya was instrumental in creating this, the help for these people.
That's right. These diversion type programs to keep people out of jail and prison. And Tanya, Vince just wondered, though, if there's any exclusions, like, for instance, if it's a violent felony and this person is mentally incapacitated, or a veteran, for instance, would that make that person ineligible for the program? And should they just go regular course of action and, hire somebody like Tiana from the Hawk Law Group, et cetera?
Well, there are different eligibility requirements. It's a little bit different because with drug court, you cannot have any violence in your background, and you are legally screened by the DA's office for that, and you can't go forward if you have violent felonies. Veterans Court and Mental Health Court is post-plea, but, and it's not quite as solidified, but it's basically if you have a probation recommendation. But I believe that you can still have the opportunity to go before the judge, even if you don't have a probation recommendation, and ask that they be screened for Mental Health Court and for Veterans Court to see if that's a more appropriate solution. Because the reality is with the veterans and with the mental health, sometimes the crimes are violent, and that's why it's a little bit different. But again, the violence comes from with veterans. They served our country and were put into violent positions, and then they are called to come back here in a different environment, and still, you can't just leave everywhere you've been all those years at the table. So that's the difference there. So I think that, if you have really violent charges, our criminal justice system says that, you should go to prison, but I think that you have to fight for them to get the treatment rather than prison. And you need to talk to the DA's office, and see if you can get a probation recommendation. If you can't get a probation recommendation, then you need to go to the judge with the records in hand, show where they've been diagnosed, show where they haven't been on their meds or on treatment when the incident occurred, and then advocate. And if there is, if you get a no, that's okay. Our job as lawyers is to ask. It's their job to figure out what justice is in any given situation.
And we just have about a minute or so in this segment. Wondering about the victim's rights in this situation. Elena asks, if a veteran commits a crime against another person, does the victim have a say in whether or not the offender can actually qualify for this program?
And again, because it's post-plea, it's not really a qualification. It's whether or not the judge is going to allow them to go into this veterans court or into the mental health court with their charges. And a victim always has a say in all of the courts. So if they want to see the person get treatment or get help for their issue, that can help the judge or the prosecutor to decide whether to make a probation recommendation or the judge to allow it. If the victim is saying, no, I think this person is a complete danger to society and needs to be in prison, they have to be heard, because that's one of the components of and goals of the criminal justice system is making a victim whole. In drug court, for instance, they have to pay the restitution that they owe to the victim in a burglary or in an entering auto before they can graduate from the program. Vic and I both practiced law for many years and know that the likelihood of getting restitution after you've sent somebody to jail and they come out is very small. Likewise, in veterans court and mental health court, there's the ability to hold that person more accountable for what they did wrong to the victim. But I think if a victim is opposed and wants someone to go to prison, I think the judge and the prosecutor are definitely going to go on the side of the victim. But at the same time, if you have a loved one that you know is hurting and they have committed something against you, and you have compassion, you can also ask them to try and get them into the mental health court or the veterans court.
Well, we'll look more into the nuts and bolts of the program in terms of how often you go to court, do you have to go to jail, and what are some of the criteria involved. You're watching News 12 Law Call. We'll be right back after we pay the bills. Well, thanks so much to Tanya Jeffords to being on the most recent two programs. She's headquartered on Walker Street in Augusta. Call her at 706-722-3019, online, jeffordslaw.com. You can go to hawklawgroup.com for a live chat, or dial them up the old-fashioned way by dialing all fours with the 706 area code to get set up at one of their 4 offices. Our topic tonight, mental health court and veterans court. And Tanya, Tony wanted to know, if you get into the program, how often will you have to go to court, and will you have to go to jail? This is specifically about veterans court.
And it is similar to a drug court. You do go to court to meet with the judge. I think it's every other week I think they go on Thursdays right now. And then they will staff your case. So if you were to test positive, or let's just say you didn't show up for your appointment to get your medications in veterans court or mental health court, then the judge can say, well, I'm giving you 7 days to go and do that. And then if you still don't do it, he can hold you in contempt and sanction you with a jail sanction or another, or rewards and sanctions as well. So they actually have to go to court. They have to go to their treatment. They have police officers that come out to their house too and to check on them. And it's basically medication monitoring. If someone's in mental health court and they have schizophrenia or they're bipolar, a lot of the times the team will work with them to find housing, to find the right medical care, to find the right combination of medicine that would allow them to be productive members of society. So they do have to show up, but many of them are working. Many of them are actually, for the Veterans Court and the Mental Health Court, they look forward to it. Many of them look forward to being there.
Tanya, what happens if the rules get violated or someone does not finish either of these programs? Where do they go?
If you get terminated from drug court because you got charged with a new felony or you went AWOL and didn't work the program and they couldn't find you and you came back and you were terminated, you're going to probably go to prison if you didn't do what you were supposed to do. If you get terminated from Veterans Court or Mental Health Court, they are already on a probated sentence, and this is a condition of their probation. So again, they could be facing prison time as well. Again, these are diversions from prison. These are giving them an opportunity to be at home with their families while being held accountable but not having to go to the prison system. So bailing out of any of the three courts can land you in prison. But the whole goal of these courts is to keep the taxpayers from having to pay for that. And number two, to get to the underlying problem and keep them safe and everybody else safe too.
Vic, in our remaining time here, are you a fan of these diversion programs?
I'm an absolute fan. It's long overdue. The community is now in support of it, and we want the entire community to know about it. We want the entire community to support it. It does nothing but good. Its success rate far exceeds the prison system rate. So we have this for you. We want you to take advantage of it. You now know about it, and we look forward to seeing your families there.
Vic, Tanya, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you another time. Have a great week ahead and happy early Veterans Day.
Thank you very much. And God bless our veterans and our mental health